I never imagined my little rainwater collection system would trigger an all-out war with my HOA. It started with a few missing gallons and ended with their entire office underwater. How could I have known those first drops hitting my new rain barrels would lead to this? After months of saving and tinkering, I had finally set up a complete rain collection system behind my house. 5 connected barrels, discreetly placed beneath the gutters, could store enough water to keep my vegetable garden thriving through California's infamous dry spells. I practically danced in the yard as a soft spring shower began, watching the clear drops plink into the barrels. This was sustainability. This was independence. Or it should have been. But 3 storms later, something didn't add up. The rainfall had been too heavy for my barrels to be barely a quarter full. Something was off. One gray afternoon, I grabbed a flashlight, crawled beneath my deck, and traced the gutter lines. That's when I saw something that made my stomach twist. Someone had installed additional piping, thin PVC branches leading away from my setup and snaking underground. Unauthorized. Unapproved. Not mine. Still on my knees in the mud, a shadow suddenly fell across me. "Mr. Harris," a sharp voice rang out. I looked up to see Cheryl Matson, president of the Oakshade Ridge HOA, clipboard in hand, lips pinched like she'd just bitten a lemon. She didn't even wait for me to stand up. "Your garden beds extend 6 inches beyond the approved landscaping plan." I wiped grime from my hands and tried to ignore her comment. "Forget the garden beds, who put these pipes on my gutters?" She glanced at the illegal piping with the kind of practiced indifference that only comes with years of unchecked authority. The association made necessary adjustments to corner properties. If you'd attended last month's meeting, you'd know we voted to optimize water distribution. Optimize? My voice cracked. "You're stealing my rainwater." "Let's not be dramatic," she said with a sigh, scribbling on her clipboard. "According to Bylaw 74.8, all excess precipitation resources are to benefit shared community spaces. Besides, your setup wasn't approved by the Architectural Committee." 2 men in HOA maintenance uniforms appeared behind her like loyal stormtroopers, nodding as if any of this made sense. I was still fuming as she turned and began walking my property line. The piping system, I realized as I followed, was elaborate. Small camouflage channels lined with decorative stone led to larger underground pipes that ran straight across several backyards. I didn't need Google Maps to guess where they ended up. The community garden. That pristine plot behind the HOA office, the one I had voted against funding during last year's dues increase, was their destination. That same garden just happened to sit behind Cheryl Matson's colonial-style home, which had an unobstructed view of it. She'd built her kingdom of flowers and vegetables with stolen water and inflated fees. Back inside my house, I called the city's water authority. The man on the other end sounded sympathetic but explained that rainwater rights in HOA-governed neighborhoods were murky. I'd have to check my HOA contract, the same behemoth document I'd skimmed and tossed into a drawer when I first moved in. While I dug through my files, a knock sounded. I opened the door to find a violation notice taped directly to my door, $300 for unauthorized landscaping modifications and confrontational behavior toward association representatives. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rain poured steadily outside, and through my bedroom window, I watched the sprinklers turn on in the community garden. The soil was already soaked, but water sprayed in all directions, a wasteful spectacle funded by stolen rain. My phone buzzed. "Saw Matson at your place. You good?" Trey. Trey was my next-door neighbor and a veteran of HOA skirmishes. I texted back, "They're stealing my rainwater for their stupid garden." His response came immediately. "Not just yours. Come by tomorrow. Bring your HOA paperwork." Trey's dining table was buried the next day beneath maps, meeting minutes, and highlighted bylaws. He pointed to Section 74.8 added last year, suspiciously without member-wide notification. It wasn't properly ratified, which made it legally shaky at best. "Can we fight this?" I asked. "Not alone," Trey said. "But I've been talking with others. You know Dana? Retired hydraulic engineer. She's been documenting the board's shady stuff for years." That afternoon, Dana's kitchen turned into a war room. At 72, with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing, she laid out topographical maps of the neighborhood and traced the water flow with a ruler. "They're not just taking your water," she said, voice sharp. "They've created an entire underground system. It diverts runoff from 6 properties to that damn garden and the decorative pond next to it. Trey jabbed a finger at the map. And look who benefits. All 5 board members have properties either bordering or overlooking the garden. Dana nodded. They did the same thing last year. Remember the oak tree removal? The playground relocation? It's always under the guise of community improvement, but it only ever helps them. My phone buzzed again, another HOA email. Dues were increasing again to cover landscaping irrigation upgrades. This is insane, I muttered. Dana smiled faintly, then pointed to the topography. Here's the kicker. Without that fancy diversion system, all this water would flow downhill right into the HOA office. It's built in a natural low point. Trey laughed. Poetic justice. Dana pulled out schematics. I'm not suggesting anything. But if someone were to modify these pipe connections during the next big storm, my heart pounded. Wouldn't they trace it back to us? I asked. Dana shook her head. That's the beauty of water. It doesn't leave fingerprints. All it takes is gravity. As if on cue, my phone dinged. A major storm system, the worst in 5 years, was expected to hit Sunday. Coincidentally, the HOA had scheduled their big annual garden showcase for Sunday afternoon. What would these modifications involve? I asked. Dana's smile widened. That night, I received yet another violation. My barrels, they claimed, were aesthetic nuisances. The fine doubled to $600. I filed it away calmly. Cheryl had no idea what was coming. Friday night, dark clouds gathered as Trey and I worked in my garage. Dana dropped off specially engineered valve replacements and laminated instructions. You'll need to install them during the storm, Trey said, checking off her gear. 6 junctions in total. Visibility will be low. We're waterproof everything. We've also got Phase 2 ready, Dana said, handing over a manila folder. Phase 2 was documentation. Trey's daughter, a journalism major, had helped compile a 30-page exposé on the HOA's abuses, illegal diversions, financial irregularities, contracts awarded to Cheryl's brother-in-law's landscaping company. Dana had filed a formal complaint with the County Water Authority, and Diane, another neighbor and a local news producer, had promised a Channel 6 crew would coincidentally be filming storm damage Sunday afternoon. Everything hinged on me. The rain began late Saturday night. By 3 a.m., I pulled on coveralls and slipped outside under cover of darkness. The storm howled, but it masked every sound. Lightning illuminated my path as I reached the first connection point behind my azalea bushes. Working quickly, I removed the illegal valve and replaced it with Dana's version, indistinguishable in appearance, but engineered to fail under high pressure. One by one, I made the modifications. At the last junction, headlights swept across the street. I hit the ground, hard hammering. Cheryl's SUV crawled past, wipers struggling. She was patrolling. I waited until she disappeared before finishing and retreating to my garage, soaked but victorious. By dawn, water flowed exactly as Dana predicted. It cascaded down the street, bypassing the garden and heading straight for the HOA office. At 8:17 a.m., Cheryl arrived. I watched from my window as she stepped from her SUV straight into ankle-deep water. She flailed through the flooded lot, fumbled with her keys, and opened the door, unleashing a small wave from inside. The rest of the board arrived shortly, forced to park blocks away due to the flood. Even from my window, I could hear Cheryl's shrieking accusations. By noon, we all received a mandatory emergency HOA meeting alert. I arrived at the community center to find it packed. Cheryl, soaked and furious, addressed the crowd. This catastrophic flooding, she said, voice brittle, was caused by deliberate sabotage. Her gaze settled on me. Then Dana stood up. I think everyone should see this, she said loudly, unfurling maps and documents across the table. These are the original drainage plans, and here are the illegal modifications. Trey added financial records. $2,700 of our dues went to install a system that only benefits board members. Chaos erupted. Homeowners stood shouting. One elderly woman declared her water bill tripled as her garden died. Dana remained calm. What happened last night wasn't sabotage, it was gravity. Cheryl's face twisted. You tampered with HOA property. But the district attorney's assistant, Diana Fuller, had arrived unnoticed in the back of the room. We've reviewed the evidence, she said. These diversion systems were unpermitted and illegal. Any modification is considered removal of an unlawful structure. She placed cease and desist orders on the table. All HOA accounts are frozen pending investigation. Security escorted Cheryl and the board out. As the doors closed behind her, someone started clapping. The room followed. 3 weeks later, I unlocked the newly remodeled HOA office, now repurposed as a community center. Dana brought in fresh plants. Trey reviewed neighborhood water usage down 30% thanks to our cooperative collection system. As neighbors filtered in for our first meeting under a new interim committee, a familiar black SUV pulled in. Cheryl stepped out holding an envelope. "I came to return these," she said, handing me a check. "Your fines with interest. Part of my community service agreement. And they said I'm to help with the new collection systems." She grimaced. "Apparently you're the expert." I let the silence stretch, then smiled. "We meet Tuesdays at 6. Bring rubber boots." That evening I checked my rain barrels. Full and waiting. Across the street, more barrels had been installed. The garden bloomed under shared care. Kids splashed in a new water play area where Cheryl's pond used to be. Dana joined me on the sidewalk. "You know what they say about water," she said, eyes on the horizon. "What's that?" "It always finds its level. Just like justice."